Hello, I would like to demonstrate Auto Inspector tool for Unity. Auto Inspector is a tool for reflecting objects and generating user interface for interacting with its objects at the runtime. Auto Inspector tool is very similar to Unity's inspector. However, the difference is that it's running in-game and it is actually part of the game, and it is utilizing Unity GUI system. So to get started, I have an empty spaceship class. This is something that I would probably need to build user interface for in order to modify its properties to later be used in-game. So if I run Unity right now, I should probably see an empty user interface generated for spaceship class. I already have Auto Inspector framework set up in the background, and I will not be going over it in this video. As we can see, the spaceship class is generated, but it's lacking any members. Okay, let's try to add something that a spaceship would probably have. To get started, it probably needs a name. Alright, let's see. Let's call it sample ship. Now I save the code and I run Unity, and if you notice, once it's done compiling, a new property has appeared called name, and it already has a value sample ship here. If I actually change the value in here, it will modify the value inside the instance of spaceship that has been passed to this user interface. This is very useful if, for example, we have a user interface which would modify the item data and then save that data somewhere, like XML file or a database. Alright, let's add some more properties. What else would a spaceship have? For example, it probably needs some sort of hit points. Let's make it an int. If I compile this, I will see that we now have two properties in the spaceship inspector. We have name and hit points. If you notice, I can't actually type any letters in the hit points field. It's numeric only because it's an int. Whereas in the name, I can type both letters and numbers because it is a string. This is something you can customize yourself by defining your own inspector elements for each specific field and overriding the default elements that I'm using. But okay, the other thing that I'm noticing is that hit points is sorted above name, which is probably not what I want because it makes navigating a little bit difficult. I actually have a way to solve this. I'm using field attributes to do that. And the attribute I'm using is called IE priority. And it's it should be done in ascending order. So in case of hit points, let's set it to 1. We'll make it 0 based, and in case of name, we'll make it 0. So that way, these elements will be sorted here the next time I run Unity in order of priority. Let's test that right now. Alright, great. As you can see now, name is above the hit points. What else would the spaceship have? Well, for this particular demonstration, I would also like to show that my user interface supports enums. Let's add some sample enum. For example, spaceship state. I'll just call it state. What kind of states do we have? We could probably have like standby, flying, and dead. And let's just add it right here. State, my state. And just for consistency, let's add the priority to it. Let's set it to flying. And also make sure it is public. Alright, let's recompile that and see what's going to happen. Alright, so we have another inspector element called myState, and if you notice, it actually splits up the word and capitalizes each part of the word, which makes it a lot easier to read in my opinion. And it's a drop down. It's basically a drop down list where you can select an item by clicking on it. And if you notice, it actually started in the flying state, so that's because I set it to flying here. So you might ask, what about enums that are flags, which support multiple values at the same time? Well, I actually have support for that as well. Let's say our state enum has a flags attribute. Now we can actually have multiple values set to myState. In this case, I know it doesn't make sense, but let's make it flying and dead at the same time. So let's recompile and see what happens. Alright, so now as you can see, myState is both set to flying and dead. And if you expand it, you can actually see the check marks here. And we can actually modify it. We can set multiple values at the same time or none. So what else does AutoInspector support? Well, how about nested classes? Let's say our spaceship is composed of an engine and a weapon. Let's add that right now. And just for demonstration's sake, let's add some parameters to both engines and weapons. Let's say engine will probably have something like speed. We'll make it a float. And the weapon will probably have something like damage, which is also a float. And another thing I didn't demonstrate, let's say engine also has a boolean called isOn. And we'll set it to true. Alright, and for consistency's sake, let's add the priority attribute and recompile and run this again and see what happens. Well, what do you know? So engine has its own attribute, which can be toggled. It has speed. We also have a weapon. And for layout's sake, we can also collapse these fields so it's easier to navigate. So this is pretty much it for the basic demo of AutoInspector. Let me know what you think, and I hope you like it. Have a good day.